Hello, my name is Carlos Valadez. Today, our group is going to break down multi-level marketing companies from several different angles to show you how they work and why they matter. I'll start by explaining what they are, how the structure functions, and how they differ from pyramid schemes. After me, John will talk about whether MLMs are ethical by looking at the pros and cons. Then, Justin will cover the connections between politicians and MLMs by discussing public figures who have been associated with these companies. Finally, Maya will explain the broader political impact of MLMs and wrap everything up in our conclusion. By the end, we'll have a full picture of how MLMs operate and why they continue to be such a debated topic. Okay, so what is an MLM? An MLM, or multi-level marketing, is a business model built around direct selling. So instead of selling products in stores, individuals buy into a company and then sell directly to consumers. What makes MLMs unique is that participants earn money in two different ways: through their own product sales and through recruiting new sellers into their organization. That recruitment piece is important because it means your income isn't just based on how well you personally sell, it's also tied to how many people you bring in and how well they sell. This combination of selling and recruiting is what sets MLMs apart from traditional businesses. And so now that we know what an MLM is, why don't we move on to how they work? MLMs operate using a pyramid-like structure where every participant is placed in a hierarchy. You have an upline, which is a group of people who recruited you, and you have a downline, which is a group of people you recruited. Your upline earns a percentage of your sales, and you earn a percentage of your downline sales. Because of this, commissions are often tied to not just selling products, but building a large team underneath you. This is why recruitment becomes such a central part of the business's model. The more people in your downline, the more potential income you earn, at least in theory. And so now that it may seem like a pyramid structure, why don't we tell the differences between the two? Even though MLMs are legal, it is important to understand how they differ from illegal pyramid schemes. MLMs are structured around selling real products, and participants are supposed to earn an income from those products as well as the recruitment part of new members. Pyramid schemes, on the other hand, usually have little to no genuine product and rely almost entirely on the recruitment part to generate money. The line between the two becomes blurry when an MLM focuses more on building a downline than actual sales, or when a member is pressured to buy large amounts of inventory themselves. Because of this overlap, some MLMs have faced investigations where their business practices start to resemble the structure of a pyramid scheme. And this concludes my part of this presentation.
Now I'm going to go over whether MLMs are actually ethical, along with the pros and cons of these business models. One of the biggest ethical concerns is misleading income claims. Many people join MLMs believing they can make a significant amount of money and achieve financial independence, but in reality, most participants earn very little or even lose money. Another major issue is the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. MLMs often target stay-at-home parents, college students, or people looking for a flexible income because they may be more financially pressured or motivated to join. These individuals are often promised freedom and success, but the odds of reaching that success are extremely low. There's also heavy pressure to recruit others, which shifts the focus away from selling actual products. Success often depends on building a large network of recruits rather than genuine product sales. Lastly, there is a high level of financial risk. Many participants are required to purchase starter kits, products, or monthly inventory, and many never recover those costs. Despite these concerns, there are still some potential benefits to MLMs. One advantage is flexibility, since participants can usually set their own schedules and often work from home. There is also a relatively low barrier to entry compared to starting a traditional business, which makes MLMs attractive to people looking for side income. Some individuals do earn money, although this is much less common than many companies advertise. In addition, MLMs can help people develop useful skills such as communication, networking, and sales experience, which may be helpful in other careers. However, the downsides are significant and often outweigh the benefits. MLMs have an extremely high failure rate, and studies have shown that over 99% of participants either lose money or make very little profit. One major reason for this is market saturation. Because every participant is encouraged to recruit more people, the number of sellers grows quickly, making it much harder for new members to find customers or recruits. This means that over time, success becomes mathematically difficult for most people, regardless of how hard they work. There is also a strong emphasis on recruitment over actual product sales, which makes the structure resemble a pyramid. A good example of this is LuLaRoe, which faced lawsuits and criticism for misleading income promises and causing financial losses for many distributors. Financial losses are common, especially when people invest in inventory, training, or monthly fees. In addition, these business models can strain personal relationships since participants are often encouraged to sell to friends and family. In conclusion, MLMs are controversial because they combine potential opportunity with significant risk. While they may offer flexibility and a chance to earn income, the reality is that most participants do not succeed financially. Because of the high failure rate, misleading income claims, and the targeting of vulnerable individuals, many people consider MLMs to be ethically questionable. This is where the connection to politics becomes important. Government agencies and regulations play a major role in protecting consumers and making sure these businesses operate fairly. Overall, while MLMs may seem like a good opportunity on the surface, the ethical concerns often outweigh the benefits, which is why stronger consumer awareness and government oversight are important. And now I'm going to pass it over to Justin, who will talk about politicians and their connections to MLMs.
Hey there, everybody. My name is Justin, and in this group presentation on multi-level marketing organizations, my job is to give a better insight on politicians' involvement in these organizations. There has been many cases of widespread controversy linking these politicians to sketchy multi-level marketing companies. By the end of my slides, I hope to give everyone a better idea on this topic. First politician that I want to go into a little bit more detail about is Ben Carson. He was actually the U.S. Secretary for Housing and Urban Development from 2017 to 2021. He was also a U.S. presidential candidate in 2016 for the Republican Party. The certain MLM that he was linked to was called Manatech. Just like many other MLMs, they were known for nutritional supplements as well as aggressive health claims. They also had a pyramid style recruiting scheme as well. He was known for making many promotional guest appearances for this company. He would often promote their supplements and say many great things about them. However, in a debate in 2015, Ben Carson actually publicly denied having any involvement with these guys, even though he was caught on camera many times promoting this company, as well as doing big events and paid promotions for them. This contradiction in his whole life actually caused significant damage to his campaign in 2006. When people see the lies come to fruition by these politicians, that usually never really helps anybody. He was caught for being involved in a very fraudulent company. Next politician that I want to go into more detail about regarding their link to MLMs is Betsy DeVos. She was the U.S. Secretary of Education back in 2017 and ran into 2021. Her family co-founded the company Amway back in 1959. Amway is one of the biggest multi-level marketing companies in the world and one of the oldest as well. It's operating in over 100 countries and does billions of dollars annually. Back in 1979, the FTC took action and ordered that they disclose that pretty much most of the people make no money with them whatsoever. The whole controversy comes into play when it's found out that they made millions and millions and millions of dollars in donations to the Republican parties over the years, Betsy Davos ends up getting on the cabinet herself. It just raises the question as to why so many MLMs were burning and destroying during that time, but somehow Amway rode through and is still one of the biggest MLMs today. It's just one of those classic pay for protection type of controversies. If you have the money, you're going to be able to ride through any time possible. The last politician that I wanted to go into more detail about is probably the most cut and dry cases of fraud that we have talked about so far. Mark Shurtleff was the Utah Attorney General from 2001 to 2013. Utah is a honey hole for MLMs. There's dozens of MLMs that were operating under Mark Shurtleff's jurisdiction. And the problems start to roll in once he gets found that hundreds of thousands of dollars of donations have been going to him from MLM affiliated organizations. His job is supposed to be policing, but he was often rather promoting MLMs more than he was policing them. And during his 12-year tenure, he was known for being friendly with them. MLMs were flourishing in Utah, while in the majority of the world, MLMs were getting destroyed and getting found out for what they really were. Well, thankfully, in 2014, Mark actually got caught and charged with his crimes of fraud. He was known for getting bribes, donations that were never supposed to happen, and this led to his falling out as Attorney General, obviously, and just another case of crime in the books of MLMs and links to politicians. In summary, after going over the cases of Mark Shurtleff, Ben Carson, and Betsy Davos, it is pretty evident that there are some fraudulent and sketchy things happening within the world of multi-level marketing organizations. I'm sure these are just 3 stories of many that summarize how politicians are able to stick their feet in and get what they want from wherever they are.
Hi, my name is Myron Skinner, and this is the impact of multi-level marketing in U.S. politics. With a focus on profits and exploitation, it should be unsurprising that multi-level marketing would stand a lot to gain from lobbying against institutions that inhibit its growth. One of the more notable cases of this was in the 1970s, in which the U.S. Federal Trade Commission started to crack down on a lot of multi-level marketing corporations. The most notable one was Amway at the time, because of the way that the political influential sphere revolved around the founders of Amway. And that conflict devolved into a political sentiment in which you had a lot of rich and wealthy folks wanting to deregulate government interference in corporate business. Following the Reagan focus on deregulation and reducing government interference with business, you also had in the 2010s, actually specifically 2010, a Supreme Court decision in which the Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission led to the reduction of restrictions on groups and donors that can donate to political campaigns. And this drastically changed the way that money interacted with U.S. politics, in which people or companies could invest money in politicians in a way that in some ways feels almost more like a bribe. But because of the decision on the Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, it was considered a legal way of putting money into a politician's pocket. And unfortunately, with the combination of those corporate interests and the ability for them to essentially hire politicians in some ways with money, there have been a lot of changes that have happened with lawmaking in recent years. And one of the other issues that comes up with that is that it's much harder to sort of have accountability in the space when you have money pushing people to make decisions that they wouldn't otherwise make. These are things like privatizing prisons, removing protections for personal privacy, especially when it comes to data, which is a huge issue right now. It's entirely likely that even the contention that surrounds the Affordable Care Act probably has in some part a little bit of that conflict revolves around the need for people to privatize healthcare further. And a lot of these pushes and techniques are very consistent with the way that multi-level marketing operates, or how it has historically operated, in the sense that it is trying to circumvent, pick apart, and sort of reconstruct things to make more profits, which is an incredibly dangerous thing when it comes to the everyday American, because we need those systems to kind of maintain stability. And all of those were public services that were put in place not with the intent of making profit, but to benefit the everyday American. Ultimately, having this kind of push in politics, especially from private interests, is in almost every way only a detriment to the population. Thank you so much for listening.
As we conclude, it is clear that multi-level marketing is much more than just a business strategy. While MLMs are often presented as flexible opportunities for financial freedom, the reality is that most participants experience financial loss, pressure to recruit others, and emotional strain on personal relationships. We also saw how these companies can extend their influence into politics through lobbying and campaign donations, which helps protect their business models and limits stronger government regulations. This creates a system where profits are prioritized over people. The ethical concerns surrounding MLMs are not only personal, but also social and political. They affect families, communities, and even public policy. Understanding how MLMs operate helps consumers make informed decisions and recognize warning signs before becoming involved. Stronger consumer protections, better financial transparency, and increased public awareness are necessary to reduce harm. Ultimately, business success should not come at the cost of exploitation. Protecting people should always matter more than profit, always. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a wonderful and safe rest of the week. Thank you. Bye.